Quick disclaimer, we are not investigative journalists. We simply read, watch, and listen to whatever we can to satisfy our curiosity while use this information to form our own personal opinions. Do not take this as investigative journalism. This is simply our own rabbit holes.
Hello, friends, and get ready. We're going to talk about the docs, the crimes, and all the people involved. This is Crime and Chill.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Victoria.
How you doing, Victoria?
I'm good. Not too much going on. How about you?
Just getting my Halloween feels going on over here.
You and your Halloween.
Man, I don't know how you don't love Halloween.
It's you and Halloween and me and Christmas. That's just the way it goes.
It's the only time of the year you can be whoever you want to be.
I mean, I guess. I just don't care. Maybe because I didn't grow up celebrating it. Maybe because it wasn't a thing for me that I'm just like, okay, it's another day.
Weirdo. Anyways, what's up in crime world?
Well, in crime world, Fallon Harris is currently being charged with first-degree murder in the murder of her 12-year-old son, Caden Ingram, out of South Chicago. The day before the murder, which was Saturday, September 11th, she had just went to see a therapist for the first time because, according to her family, she had been having paranoid behavior and saying somebody was out to get her. The murder was captured on the home security cameras. Fallon confronted Caden on Saturday over a missing memory card that she had reportedly taken out of her vehicle the night before. She confronted him at gunpoint, and when he said he didn't know where the memory card was, she shot him once, wounding him. She took the time after that to answer a phone call while her son cried in pain and he was conscious. After the phone call, she again asked him where her memory card was or whatever, and he once again said he didn't know. And then she shot him in the head. She called 2 family members after that to tell them what happened. They then called police, and Caden's father and police showed up around the same time. Caden's father and Fallon have been separated and possibly divorced. I'm unclear if they're completely divorced. Fallon immediately admitted she shot her son and led police to the murder weapon, and she had court on Sunday the 12th where she was disruptive and combative early in the hearing, and then later broke down crying, and when she was given the chance to speak, she asked to talk to her mom. The judge did order Fallon to be held without bail and signed a healthcare order which will allow Fallon to be evaluated mentally.
I mean, she obviously needs it.
Yep. If you're going to shoot your 12-year-old son over a memory card.
Not once, but twice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's rough. That was sick. It's sad.
Pretty much all the crime news this week has been some fuck shit with kids. I don't know what's going on, but that is currently what's going on in the crime world.
Man, that's not fair.
Mm-mm. There's a lot of murder-suicides also happening right now. Don't know what's in the air, but something apparently.
I mean, the whole world's going to shit in a handbag, and so people are like, fuck it. Let's do it live. Or I guess dead in their case.
Jesus. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it.
Oh, that's just... Damn. Mm-hmm. You just ruined my whole let's get holiday spirit.
I'm good at that.
Well,
you just take some time and then recuperate, and then you can get back into your holiday spirit.
Okay, well, on that note, I don't have anything to say to that. That's sick.
Yup. But like I said, it's all kids or it's murder-suicides. Or just random bodies being found, the usual.
Jesus. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's turn the page of some old crimes then. Ones that don't involve children being murdered by the hands of their parents.
Alrighty, so today we're going to be talking about Mary Bell. Mary Bell was arrested and charged with the murder of 2 young boys when she was only 11 in England in 1968. And before we talk about the murders, let's talk about Mary's life up until that point.
Mary Bell was born to Elizabeth, otherwise known as Betty Bell, a well-known prostitute. Mary was the second child for Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was only 17 at the time. The identity of Mary's biological father is unknown, but most of her life, Mary believed her father to be William Billy Bell, a violent drunk.
Mary was an unwanted child, and she was very neglected, and as like her entire young life, she often had quote unquote accidents whenever she was alone with her mother, which led the family to believe she was either just the mother was just plain neglectful or purposefully trying to harm/kill Mary. And Elizabeth did drop Mary out of a first floor window, dosed her with sleeping pills, and at one point even sold her to a mentally unstable woman because that woman could not have her own kids. So Mary's older sister, Catherine, went and got Mary back and brought her back home.
Even though there was all this negligence and abuse, Elizabeth refused families' offers to take custody of Mary and allegedly started allowing her clients to abuse and rape Mary. Like her same clients that were having sex with her were also paid to have sex with her daughter. Gross.
What the fuck? Like, if you didn't want your kid, which obviously you did not, why would you not just let the family take the custody?
I don't know.
I don't understand that.
That's some sick and sadistic shit right there.
It's like straight sadism of you're just enjoying torturing your kid at that point because you don't want her. It's very obvious. I mean, you dropped her out of a window. That tells me right there you don't fucking want your kid.
How could you let these men touch your daughter that way? Like you've got issues.
Yeah. And she was like a dominatrix and I'm like, okay, well good for you, but leave your child out of it.
Yeah. I don't know. First of all, the men that paid for it are disgusting, but the mother that allows it to happen, she deserved the worst possible fate possible.
I agree. So Mary was known to have violent mood swings at school and at home and would often get in fights with other children. And I mean, of course, like, look at all the crap that's happened so far. She was going to have issues. She was going to be violent.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, she was attempting to strangle children and suffocate them. And there's reportedly one incident of using sand to try to suffocate one child. I mean, all she's had up until this point is violence. So what the hell else do you want her to do?
Yeah, she has no way of knowing how to be a child and play with other children. What did people really think were going to happen? Could you really blame her for the way she behaved? Because this is definitely a case where nurture was not there at all. She had no nurturing.
100% had no nurturing and was just like, okay, well, everybody hurts me, so I'm going to hurt everybody else. What else was she supposed to do? She didn't know any better.
No, didn't know any better at all. The fact that she could become friends with anybody was beyond amazing. She did have one friend named Norma Bell, but they do not have any relations.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really that surprising that she had the one friend because nobody wants to be friends with the kid that's trying to kill other kids.
No, nobody. Would you? Because I sure as heck wouldn't.
Hell no. Like, oh, you're prone to just hauling off and attacking people. No, thank you. And they were saying, like, they could tell when these sudden changes were about to happen. Like, she would shake her head and her eyes would glaze over. And, like, if she was just, like, focused staring at you, that's who she was going after. I'm like, well, damn.
Which
Insane.
is scary that they could tell that something was wrong and nobody got any help.
Yeah, that's the whole other part of this is, like, okay, we have all of this crap. Like, the family knew something was going on. And then she's doing this at school. Was child services not a thing in the 60s?
I don't know. I wasn't here for it.
I wasn't either. So, and then before the actual, like, murders happened, there was 2 other assaults where the police were involved, and Mary and Norma were both spoken to, and they both happened on the same day. There's no dates to really go along with it, but I'm kind of guessing they were the same year as the murder. And if that's right, then it was only 2 weeks before the first murder.
So first we have a 3-year-old boy that's found wandering around, kind of out of it and bleeding. The boy would inform police that he had been playing with Mary and Norma on top of an unused air raid shelter. And is this like a shelter for like bombings? Like, I don't know what an air raid shelter is.
Yeah, it was a shelter for the bombings and stuff because back in, again, this was in England. So during, I think it was World War II was really when they set up the air raid shelters.
Oh, okay. And the girls pushed him off of it. He fell 7 feet from the roof, which caused a severe cut on his head. He's lucky that's all that happened. 7 feet's a pretty high drop for a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Like, Jesus. He was wandering around, bleeding and confused, and just, I think it was either somebody else or the police just happened upon him. Like, what would have happened if nobody would have happened upon him? That
Okay.
kid would not made
Also,
it home.
why is a 3-year-old without its parents?
Different times.
Still crazy.
Oh yeah, I think at no point should like the young, like 3, 4, or 5, even 6-year-olds should not be alone without their parents to play with these older children.
No. Insane.
And then on the same day, the parents of 3 girls contacted the police to report that Mary and Norma had attempted to strangle their children while they were playing in a sand pit, which is apparently kind of similar to a sandbox, but also not really. I'm confused. Both girls were interviewed about both of these assaults, and they both claimed they had nothing to do with the little boy being hurt. They just had come across him after he had fallen 7 feet and cracked his head open. Okay.
And then you just let him wander?
Yeah, like you didn't do anything. Even, again, if this was right around when I think it was, then Mary was almost 11 and Norma was 13.
Plenty old enough to know that this is a baby who's hurt. We need to find an adult.
Yeah. The second incident, Mary denied any knowledge of it, but Norma admitted that Mary had done that, and she explained like how all of it happened and what went down with these 3 girls. And
the police did notify local authorities of these incidents and of Mary's violent behavior, but because of the ages, the girls were just giving a warning and that's it. Excuse me. A warning for strangling kids.
yeah, you were talked to and given a stern warning. Hey, don't strangle people anymore. What?
I can't believe that's all that happened.
No, because obviously, if we're going to go just off the strangling, that is cause enough to intervene more and figure out, again, what's going on in this girl's life that she's doing that.
Exactly. So then we come to the murders. Mary's first murder was on May 25th of 1968, and his name was Martin Brown. He was a 4-year-old boy. She strangled him, and his body was discovered by 3 other children. There were some specks of blood and some foaming around the mouth. Soon a local workman arrived and tried to perform CPR, which did not work.
Very sad. And while performing CPR, Mary and her friend Norma were in the doorway of the room where Martin's body was, and they were like ran off, like, go on, get out of here. So after that, Mary and Norma went to Martin's aunt's house and knocked on the door and said something along the lines of, this was the 60s, late 60s, early 70s in England, so we're not going to be exactly quoting them because it's some weird words that I'm not going to try and say. But they said something along the lines of, one of your sister's kids had an accident and that they thought it was Martin, but they couldn't tell. It's just insane. Like,
it's sick. They were unable to conclude the cause of death, but they did rule out poisoning from taking tablets, which was the investigators' original theory, because there was no sign of violence. Then on May 26th of 1968, the day before Mary's birthday, Mary and Norma broke into and vandalized a preschool. They tore books, turned over desks, and smeared ink and paint around the school. Why?
well, because they were leaving notes on the walls, and those notes were discovered the next day. And in those notes, they claimed responsibility for the murder of Martin. And they were like telling people to fuck off and calling them bastards. I don't know how England is, so maybe that was normal. And this incident was dismissed by police as a tasteless and childish prank, which, it was done by a 10 and a 13-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, they were so ballsy to be that young. You know what I mean? Like, that's, what if you had, I don't know, it just seems very ballsy. And very, I don't know. I cannot imagine. Nick is 10 now. Him, 1, killing somebody, and 2, then being brave enough to go scribble stuff around a school, you know?
To add even more to their ballsiness, which, other than the actual murders, this is to me the most fucked up part of everything, is on May 29th, the girls either called or they went to Martin's mom and they asked to see Martin, and the mom was like, oh no, you can't see him, he's deceased, he's dead. And Mary said, oh, I know he's dead, I just want to see his coffin. What the fuck?
There was one guy I watched talking about this case. They don't do open caskets across the ocean. So he's never seen a dead body before, which is, I think that's how it should be. Keep it closed. You should
get freaked out at open casket.
Yeah, for this, 11-year-old to be like, I want to see a dead body. Yo, I'd be so creeped out by that kid.
So freaking creeped out. Like, excuse me? You're a child. Get the fuck off my doorstep.
Yeah, disgusting. But Mary would go and kill again this time with the help of her friend Norma a little over 2 months later. They killed a 3-year-old named Brian Howe. He was last seen by his parents playing outside with the family dog, which, was so sad, and Mary and Norma, but he did not return home that afternoon. The family started to worry and began looking for him. Again, 3 years old, out of their sight. Why?
I don't know. And then it just also speaks to how Mary and Norma are, that they're going after these very small children.
Yeah, easier to overtake.
So sadly, Brian's body would not be discovered until after 11 p.m. the night that he went missing, and a search party found his body between 2 concrete blocks, and the first policeman that was on scene said that there was a, quote, deliberate but feeble attempt to conceal the body because it was covered with grass and weeds, and Brian had several bruises and scratches on his neck, and a pair of broken scissors were found by his feet.
The coroner concluded that he had, in this case, he had died from strangulation and had been dead for about over 7 hours before his body was found. This was an act of not just murder but torture, because they did do a lot to the poor baby. They didn't just kill him; they made sure to mutilize him as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of stabbing. There was some hair cut off, and mutilation was involved, and an attempt to carve an M into his stomach. Again, this is a 3-year-old, guys. And the coroner was able to conclude, because of the amount of force that was used to kill Brian, he was able to tell that he was killed by another child, and there were also some fibers found on his body, clothing fibers that they were able to determine did not come from inside the Howe household.
This turned into rather a large case. They had over 100 detectives assigned to this case, and they questioned over 1,200 children. They interviewed Mary and Norma on August 1st, and it was noted that Norma was a lot more excitable, while Mary was quiet and observant. They were both contradictory in their initial interviews. Both girls admitted to playing with Brian that day and said they didn't see him after lunchtime.
And then the next day, Mary told detectives that she had seen an 8-year-old boy playing with Brian on the afternoon he was murdered, and also said she had seen the boy hitting him, and then went on to add that she remembered seeing the boy covered in grass and weeds, and that she had a small pair of scissors. And then she kept trying to add more to this story, and then she said that she saw that same boy, the 8-year-old boy, trying to cut off a cat's tail with scissors, and said something was already wrong with the cat. That's a elaborate story.
The fact that she knew about the scissors, though, really should have set alarm bells off to the police, because when the police did the interview, they learned that the boy she named in the statement was quickly proven to be wrong, because he was at the airport the day of the murder. So then on August 4th, Norma's parents contacted police and told them that their daughter wanted to confess that she knew about Brian's murder. A detective went to their home and talked to Norma.
And Norma said at first that Mary had taken her to a spot, quote, on the Tin Lizzie. And listen, I spent a long time trying to figure out what that was referring to, what that meant, if it was a place. And all I could find was a nickname for a car in the 1920s. So if anybody else understands that, somebody tell me, because I'm really confused and I'd really like to know. But anyway, Norma said that Mary took her to the spot and showed her Brian's body, and then went on to explain how she strangled him. And she said that Mary told her that she enjoyed it, and then went on to describing Mary went on to describe that cutting the marks into Brian's stomach that we talked about earlier with a razor blade that had been hidden on the scene.
So, of course, the next steps was to talk to Mary on the next day. The detectives went to Mary's house, and at first she was super defensive and said that they were trying to brainwash her. But later that day, Norma was questioned again, and this time admitted to being present while Mary strangled Brian. She said Mary went funny before pushing the child into the grass and strangling him, then saying her hands were tired, and she tried to get Norma to strangle him, and she ran away, leaving Mary and Brian alone. The examiner was able to compare clothes owned by both Norma and Mary to the fibers found on Brian, and the fibers matched a dress owned by Mary and a skirt owned by Norma.
So, on August 7th, when Brian was buried and the funeral procession started, Mary was standing outside of his family's home when his coffin was brought out of the home. And according to the detective who was later the one that arrested both girls on this same day, so on August 7th is when they were both arrested, Mary was standing outside of the house laughing and rubbing her hands together as they brought the coffin out.
All right, sick.
What the fuck?
Sick. She had a lot of mental problems. That poor child. I mean, all of the children involved in this. It's just so sad.
Yeah, it's like you don't know whether to be pissed at Mary for doing this or kind of feel bad.
I think it's a
It's like,
little
obviously, yeah.
I think it's a failure upon all the adults that were in this neighborhood at the time. For one, not getting Mary the help she needed, and two, not protecting their children if they weren't going to get Mary the help she needed.
So both girls were arrested, and Mary was like, all right, let's go, whatever. Norma freaked out, understandably. Like, that's what I'd expect out of a child getting arrested, is to flip out. You know? Mary wrote a statement saying she had been at the murder, but placed blame on Norma, and then later admitted to both of them breaking into the preschool.
Both girls did undergo psychological evaluations. Norma was found to be intellectually delayed and with a submissive character who was easily displayed emotions. I don't understand that, for one thing. But anyways, Mary's evaluation said she was bright but cunning and prone to sudden mood swings. When Mary was willing to talk, she would quickly become sullen and dismissive.
Yeah, so I mean, it just shows that from
It
the
was
get-go.
They were the worst combination of people to have together, though, because Mary is very much of a leader. Yeah, yeah. She's a leader, and Norma's a follower. Norma just wanted to be included in a group where Mary made her feel like Mary was able to give her the feels she needed to feel accepted, and that's why they would work together. Kind of like opposites attract for the worst storm in this case.
So there were 4 psychiatrists that examined Mary, and they concluded that she didn't suffer from a mental disorder, but she did have psychopathic personality disorder, which just means she had basically lack of or no empathy or remorse. She was manipulative. I have trouble saying that word. Lying and antisocial behaviors, which...
I mean, can you blame her with the family she was living, how she was living?
Yeah, so then to me, everybody's like, oh, but you're either born psychopathic with psychopathic tendencies or blah, 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 or you're not. Like, I don't think this girl was born with them. I think it was because of what happened.
Yeah, I think she wasn't. I really think empathy is something that you are taught as a child. I don't think all children are born with empathy. That's why we have all these emotional intelligence books for children that you talk about, sharing and caring, and like these are things you instill in your children. Yeah. I don't think those are things you were born with. I think we're all animal instincts, and animal instincts is to take, it's to provide for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we teach our children to care and share and to love. I mean, I think love you're born with, but if you're not given all of the other tools, love doesn't have much meaning then. Because how do you show love if you don't know how to care or share or to have any kind of compassion if you're never taught those things?
I mean, spot on. Spoken like a true mother, and I love it.
Oh, but it's really sad that she wasn't given those. Both girls were charged with both murders, and the trial started on December 5th. Both girls pled not guilty to the judge, despite protests from both girls' defense attorneys, waived the girls' rights to anonymity because of their age. So it meant the media was able to put their names and pictures out for the public. I have different thoughts on this. I think if you were going to charge a child as a child, we shouldn't be talking about them, because once they're no longer a child, their crimes are usually wiped, and to put their names and faces all over the world, it kind of defeats the purpose of charging them as a child. But that's That's just my take. Prosecution, in their opening statement that was 6 hours long, made sure the jury knew that despite the age difference, Mary was the dominant one out of the two girls. Norma maintained that she never touched Brian, but she did fail to act and help him or alert anyone, and also said that Mary had talked about killing children in the past. Mary testified for 4 hours total over 2 days, and Mary denied everything, Norma said. She said she only saw Martin's body, but she didn't kill him. She maintained that Norma was the one who killed Brian and failed to act because she felt stuck in a place. That's insane that she was able to come up with this at 11 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, this is like elaborate.
yeah, like that shows a lot of intelligence to know how to lie or what to say at that age. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just naive. Norma's mother testified prior to Brian's murder. She said that her husband found out Mary strangled Norma's younger sister, and Mary only let go when her husband punched Mary in the shoulder. Okay.
Again, failure to get this child help.
Exactly. Child psychiatrist testified that Norma's mental age was only 8 years old, even though she was 13. She didn't have the ability to know right from wrong, just as much as an 8-year-old would know. And she was able to understand the acts of wrongness of what she was being accused of. Mary's mom throughout the entire trial was very dramatic, even though prior to this trial, she never gave a shit about this child.
Yeah, no, like the sobbing and wailing, like no, you
Disrupting
don't care
the
about your
court.
kid. Yeah.
She would disappear and magically reappear back normal and start it all over again.
Attention. That's all I can say is attention.
Yeah. That's all she wanted.
So the trial lasted 9 days, and the jury spent over 3 hours deliberating. Mary Bell was cleared of murder, but she was convicted on manslaughter of both boys, and Norma Bell was completely acquitted of all charges. Which I have mixed feelings on the acquitted part.
I would like to know what help they got her after acquitting her.
Yeah, because I was like researching kind of like, because I never saw anything saying she was granted things later to protect her identity. So I can't, I mean, if you look up that name, the only thing you find is an old lady that was murdered recently. And I don't know if it's the same person, and there's not really a way to tell. This is not said in the article anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. The next thing that I find extremely what the hell is Mary's sentence was indefinite. They had no timeline of when she was being released, if she ever would be released, what her actual time would be. That's like putting a child in timeout and saying, we'll let you out when we want. Like, how does that happen?
I mean, to me, it kind of makes sense because they couldn't. I mean, this girl obviously needed a lot of psychological help and needed structure of some sort. So to say, oh, well, we'll let you out at 18. Well, I don't think 18 would have been the right choice. And I don't think that's why I think they did indefinite, because they weren't 100% sure what was going to be right for her, because
they had a lot of damage to undo.
Yeah. So, I mean, while it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I get it.
Yeah, I think in her case, it worked out for her benefit. I think if this was to happen today, though, there would be a lot of issues with, we're just going to say, we'll let you out when we want. I think that would cause a lot of problems now.
Yeah.
Mary was bounced around, and when she was in one of the facilities, Mary claimed that when she was 13, she was sexually abused by inmates and staff. She was transferred when she was 16 in 1973, and this was the first time that she would apply for parole and be denied.
I mean, did she really think she was going to get parole that quickly?
I mean, honestly, was home any better? Like, this sounds like it should have been a vacation for you, girl. Just in my opinion. I mean, other than the sexual assaults.
Yeah.
But that was going to happen at home anyways, because your mom was selling you to her clients, so...
Yeah, so I hate that even after getting out of that situation, she had to deal with that again.
Yeah.
And again, she was bounced around a lot. She was transferred around a good bit. In 1977, Mary and another inmate escaped, and they spent several days with some boys they met. They were just being teenagers, really. And then the girls did split up after spending the time together, and Mary was caught first. She had dyed her hair blonde to avoid being caught. She was a brunette naturally, so I mean, maybe that would have thrown off some people off her trail. I don't know. And the other girl was caught a few days later. Here's the kicker. Mary's punishment for escaping. She lost privileges for 28 days.
All right, so if she had caused crimes while she was out, I would see why that's crazy. But she just acted like a normal teenager when she got out, when she left. She didn't murder anybody, you know what I mean? She didn't hurt anybody.
Thank God.
Obviously, some of this treatment was working because she just wanted to go out and see be a normal teenager. So while, yes, it was wrong because she was there for murder, I don't think the extra, the 28 days of no privileges was that wrong of a sentence for that situation.
I mean, it just seems like grounding pretty much. And I'm like, maybe we should have done it for a little longer.
Yeah, but I mean, a 28-day grounding is pretty extensive. That's pretty extensive. I think if she did hurt someone or did something other than just escape, then yes, it should have been harsher. But I think showing her that, hey, you broke the rules, you're going to get 28 days worth of nothing, and then go back to normal, being still locked up. I don't know. I think it was okay. But in May of
that way.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't do any. It was just like sneaking out. Like, imagine if you snuck out as a kid. Our parents weren't going to do it. I didn't need to sneak out, so I just walked out.
Me either, so.
I just walked out. But in 1980, after 11 and a half years, Mary was released and granted, and I can't say this word, but it's pretty much like being anonymous. She was given a new name, and she could live her life outside of her past. At this point, Mary was only 23 years old, so she would go on to have a daughter who knew nothing of her mother's past until 1998, when reporters found out Mary's location. At the time, her daughter was only 14 years old. Can you imagine being that daughter?
No, that's so sad. Like, there was a reason they gave Mary this opportunity to have a new name, just to start over. I mean, she was getting run out of places before they granted her that. So they granted her that, she relocated, and then has a kid, and it's like, we're just not going to tell my kid any of this, which, I kind of don't blame her.
Yeah, I mean, the kid was only 14, and she hadn't known until, at that point. I don't think I would have told my child at that age anyways. I would have probably told them, but it probably would have been much older.
Yeah, 14's young. So then you end up having to find all this out because reporters are running you out of your house.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, and it's not fair to the daughter. She didn't have anything to do with this.
Mm-mm. And the daughter was also granted the anonymity. We don't know. Anyway.
Whatever.
She was granted that when she was born, and that was only supposed to last until she was 18. But in 2003, that order was extended to last her entire life. And then in 2009, this same thing was also granted to Mary's granddaughter.
In 1998, Mary works with an author to write a book about her life. The author who worked on this book said Mary doesn't say she was wrongly convicted, and she admits to the abuse she suffered, and it is an excuse for her actions. The only thing that bothers me about this whole thing is that the parents of Brian and Martin, they didn't get to watch their children have children. They didn't get to watch their children's children have children.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, I know Mary takes responsibility for it, but I really felt like her mother should have taken more responsibility.
Yes. And then, see, to me, this is also a little crazy that she ended up getting let out when she was, because, I mean, there's plenty of kids who killed when they were young, as her age or younger, and they're still sitting in prison to this day.
Yeah. A lot of that is here in the United States, though. There's one kid here in the United States who was 9 or 10 when he murdered someone. and he has a life sentence.
It's insane to me.
And I'm glad that once she did get out, she obviously did get the help she needed because she did live a normal life. But I wish
Yeah.
somebody would have gotten her that help prior to murdering those poor babies.
Yeah, I mean, it's again of what did anybody expect this child to do when she was growing up in violence? All she known was violence. So she's going to act violent. She's going to act at what she thinks is normal.
I
And
think
like
she knew it wasn't normal, but I don't think she knew how to control the thoughts that were building up inside of her. I think a lot of that was hatred for her mother. And
yeah,
there's one point where she writes a letter to her mom, begging her to take responsibility for the way she brought her up into this world and how it has a lot to do with why she committed the crime she committed. And the mother refused to say anything.
of course the mother did, because why accept responsibility that you fucked your child up when you could just sit here and be like, nope, I'm not going to act like no, I didn't do anything. It's not my fault. I didn't abuse you. I didn't throw you out of a window. Whatever.
Or let men touch you inappropriately for money or give you sleeping pills or any of the other horrible things that I did to you. Not my problem.
This is the thing. And that nobody ends up, like, a lot of people don't talk about, like, if you grew up in an abusive household, if you grew up with an abusive past, there are behaviors that are learned, and either you learn on your own to correct them, or you see another way, somehow, some way, to correct those behaviors. Like, it's not just, oh, well, I might have grew up in an abusive household, but and anyway, I turned out just fine. No, it's not. You didn't. That's not what happened. Nobody turns out just fine from growing up in an abusive household. You learn things other ways.
Yeah, somebody in your life touches you in a way to remind you that how you're brought into this world doesn't mean how you have to live in this world. If you recognize that or not, that's your prerogative. But somebody had a kind enough heart to reach you to stop the
Mm-hmm.
spiral. Don't think you're this almighty powerful person because you grew up one way and turned your life into another. Nope, that's not what happened.
No.
You grew up one way and somebody in this world had the compassion to give you a hand. Whether you realize that or not, that's your thing, but you
Yeah.
don't change the way you were nurtured without
Mm-hmm.
somebody or something changing you.
Mm-hmm. And like you might not. It could have been the smallest thing of life, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
why you don't realize it and you don't remember it. But that's what happens. Like you can't. I'm sorry, you can't tell me otherwise. Like I
No.
know that's what happens.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. Whether it be music or a TV show or an actual person or a stranger or a book you read, something is just a little switch
Mm-hmm.
to stop the cycle. And not everybody's lucky enough to find that switch. But
Or if sometimes they are given the opportunity to flip the switch, and instead of doing that, they just continue on. Because here's the thing, you have two options, people, in life. Is you can either hold on to your anger and resentment and let it turn you into a bad person despite, having the opportunity to flip the switch, or you can flip the switch and move on and be a good person anyway.
yep, we are not the type of creature that has no way to evolve. We have a lot of resources. We have a lot of abilities that are beyond most people's wildest dreams. And a person who is grown up in the worst of the worst and becomes the best, watch those people. Those are the people who find out what was their switch. I mean, everybody gets a switch. It's, do you have the capacity to flip it? There are people in this world that are your switches. Are you going to flip your switch or are you just going to let your switch stay off? I mean, that's really, it's all up to you.
Mm-hmm. And well, yeah, it might require some therapy. That's okay. It's 100% okay to go to therapy. It's 100% okay to recognize that, well, I can see that I need to flip this and I need to change this, but I'm not really sure how. Okay. That's okay. you're allowed to reach out for help. Despite what anybody else has put into your head, you're allowed to reach out for help.
As well you should. Even if you don't think you have a problem, you'd be amazed if you just talk to one person, how you can spiral down to that one moment where something changed your life that you didn't even realize. Just talking about it may help you grow from that person.
Mm-hmm.
But that's our TED Talk for the week.
So I'm just gonna say, all in all, with Mary, I'm glad she seemed to have she's taken responsibility. Good job. She got the help she needed. She's able to have a normal life.
For the most part.
And, yeah, for the most part, in spite of, like I said, she has to carry that for the rest of her life, people. Just because she was granted a new name, able to move to a new location, she still has to carry that. She has to live with that every single day of her life.
Yep.
She just sounds like, and hopefully still is, getting the psychological help to deal with that. And I hope her daughter also got therapy after having to find out about that about her mother.
Yeah, I hope this is eye-opening to show you that we are very malleable people. Like, we can be flexible and change, and sometimes for the wrong reasons, we adapt to what we know. Sometimes we adapt to the right thing. So I'm glad Mary was able to adapt to the real world after being locked up for only 12 years or less than 12 years.
Yep. And I'm glad that it seemed to have worked because, sometimes people do get locked up and it doesn't work and they go out and do it again and again and again and again until eventually they finally just get thrown in prison and the key gets thrown away.
Yeah. Is she still alive?
It's kind of hard to tell.
Because she was granted
yeah.
From far as I can tell, I could say she is, but because she was granted her name change, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, so as far as I can tell, she is still alive and well. I feel like even with the name change and everything, if something did happen, I feel like it would get out.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to her daughter, or what her daughter does.
I want to know what happened to Norma.
Her daughter has to be around the same age as I am.
So she was 14 in 1998, right?
Oh, then she's a little bit older than me. 1998, I was only 7, so she's 7 years older than me.
Yeah. I mean, I wish there was a way to find out what happened to Norma.
So, wow. I found a cool story. Yes, I did. It's from the lover of Mary Bell when she tells her daughter.
Ooh.
Yes, her lover said that she is now a loving mother seeking understanding and forgiveness. It's like about how she was as a mother.
We will be linking that, guys. Because I did not see that. And if I had, we would have already talked about it. So also send that to me.
Oh my goodness. This is so good. It's so long. I got to read it all. All right. I will send it to you. It is on the freelibrary.com. So I'd have nothing to go on about this site. I will look into it more, but it looks like it is an article holder for like newsletters. And this was dated April 30th of 1998 in the Mirror, which is a news, what's that called? Like a media outlet in London, England. So I will send this over to you.
And it will be linked so you guys can read it. Anything else to add, Rachel?
No, but oh my goodness, this is so good.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Crime and Chill. We'll see y'all next week. And be sure to follow us on social media under the names Crime and Chill Podcast and join our Facebook group, Crime and Chill Fam. Talk more crime with us. We'll see y'all next week. Bye.